Well, it's official. Well, I said not official. I said last video we'd have not much hurricanes or stuff like that. I was wrong. We had this big system blow up out of nowhere and it is a major category 5 hurricane. It is the highest scale possible. It does not go over category 5, so I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about like a category 6. Maximum is category 5. Can't go any higher than that. Um, then I mean, this is it right here. This is a satellite imagery of Major Hurricane Milton as it makes its way towards Tampa Bay region and is expected to make landfall late Wednesday as a category 3 or 4. I will get into why it could be higher or lower in a few minutes. But I just want to quickly go over why this is a category 4 and what pointers to look for. Obviously, the most predominant is a very circular eye and eye wall. As you've seen, it's very small. It's because there's not a lot of shear, so it can't, or like not a lot of rain to blow it up and make it big, as we saw in Helene. Still, this is a major Category 5 hurricane with winds sustained, I think 185 and gusts up to 200 miles per hour. This is not expected to hit the Yucatan Peninsula, although it will cause some coastal activities along the Yucatan. However, that's not what we're focused about. You can see that we've had a lot of blowing up, convection, and it's going to stay rapidly intensifying until it gets closer to Florida. So, I'm actually going to get into that right now. So, enough about the satellite picture. Let's get into that right now. All right. So this is the HAFSA model. This is a very popular model that a lot of people use to forecast. And I mean this is a wind speed graph in miles per hour, and you can see this is about the approximate location. And you can see it is just cranking out here. It's category 5 right now. And as it traverses, you can see it's going to stay at category 5 as it traverses. But you'll notice something. See how it begins to kind of blow up there? Kind of see this north side, it gets really big and stuff, but then on the south side, there's a lot of dry air intruding it. That's because of something called wind shear. And wind shear and hurricanes, they hate each other. And tornadoes, you know that they mix, they go great. That's how there's tornadoes. It's because of wind shear. But when there's wind shear with a hurricane, hurricanes hate wind shear. They will tear, and wind shear inevitably tears the hurricane apart. And there's a big amounts of wind shear stationed over Florida, and we'll get into the actual plot of it here in a second. But the reason why this storm could make landfall as a Category 4 is because at you can see it will be a Category 5 right up until it meets that shear, that wind shear, and when it hits that, you can see it just begins to get torn apart pretty rapidly. You can see it's very compact here. This is category 5, 5, 4, and then it's set to make landfall as a a high end category 3 hurricane because of that wind shear. However, if for some reason this thing decides to, maybe pull off the wind shear or maybe just keep like maybe just fight off the wind shear as long as it can and keep battling it and not letting it affect it too much, we could see a category 4 landfall. And I'll go deeper into that here in a second. But this is the projected path. Right now, it's projected to make landfall right in Tampa Bay. Uh, a, a mandatory evacuation from Tampa Bay down to a past Fort Myer is in effect for a dangerous storm surge, which we will also get into here in a second. But this is the current path. I'll show the graphic here in a second, but I just want to show the wind graph really fast. Let's get into the impacts and all the important info that you guys need to know. So let's get into that right now. All right. So this is the exact track that it's going to take, most likely from where it is now. So this is 7 a.m. Monday, right over here. You can see it is a major Category 5 hurricane. And I mean, you can see it's going to stay a major hurricane all the way up until landfall. Obviously, landfall it'll become nothing after. Go back. And also, something key about this, it's going to go straight back out to ocean. It's not supposed to, curve back up or get, pulled up with the Fujiwara effect like Helene did and cause more damage. That's not going to happen. So everybody, that experience that significant flooding, that's not going to happen. But it's just going to go straight back out to the ocean and become a extratropical remnant, which is nothing. But you can see it stays a major hurricane all throughout. From basically the Yucatan, it being a major Category 5 on 1 a.m. Tuesday to landfall sometime late Wednesday. And we'll get into further impacts and such here in just a second, and the storm surge map in here just a second. But this is the exact track right here. You can see it is expected to make landfall anywhere within the cone of uncertainty. What that means is it could make this white outline right here. It could make landfall anywhere in between this cone. I'm not saying it's going to go straight down the middle and make landfall straight in the middle. That's not what could happen at all. It could make landfall way up here in the Big Bend region, bad because they're still recovering from it. But it can make landfall all the way up here in the Big Bend region, or it could make landfall all the way down here towards the Cape Fort Myer area down near in Miami, down there. What I'm trying to say is when the you know you when you're looking at like a map and they're saying, oh, it's gonna go straight down. It could go straight down the middle, or like you have somebody saying it's gonna hit Tampa head on. May not. It may go further down here. It may go further up here. The hurricanes tend to wobble. Helene definitely wobbled. I mean, it was initially supposed to hit Tallahassee head on. I think it hit a little bit further to the wobbled last second. But enough about Helene. Let's get straight into the storm surge map. Because I know that's something that is pretty big. So let's get right into that right now. Okay, so this is the peak storm surge map right here. This is peak storm surge amounts, which meaning it could be this. I'm not saying that every area is gonna see 10 to 15 feet. The peak amount that they could see is 10 to 15, which which is devastating. Horrible, devastating. It is just bad. You can see a lot of the west coast of Florida is under this threat. I mean, anywhere from Bonita Beach, which is under 6 to 10 feet, all the way up here towards oh, Indian Pass. We could see 1 to 3 feet all the way up there because when the hurricane of this, it's pulling water in, which is creating. I think it's called an inflow, water rushing inland, sort of like a tsunami, but not really. It only rushes inland I think a few miles, not much. Anyway, but I mean, we're gonna see pretty significant impacts right in this region. There are mandatory evacuation orders and state of emergencies all going out across all of Florida, and I'm assuming that as this hurricane gets closer and we actually see if it's gonna be a 3 or 4, or even it could be even weaker if the shear really gets into it. But like I said, I mean, aside from all the wind and stuff like that, the peak storm surge, I mean, Tampa Bay and Charlotte Harbor Bay, you guys could see very damaging amounts. We could see 10 to 15 feet. Charlotte Harbor Bay could see 6 to 10 feet. If you are in a mandatory evacuation, obviously listen to officials. But if you're under one of those mandatory evacuations, your best bet would be to leave. 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is something not to mess around with. And it's devastating what it can do. We saw 15 to 20 feet from Helene, and we saw what that did to many areas in the Big Bend. So I'm obviously listen to your officials. I'm just some weather nerd that loves weather and wants to share my passion with others and inform them about things that may not know this. Obviously, everyone has the internet, so everyone knows about this. But anyway, point being is listen to your officials. But if if I were under a mandatory evacuation order, I'm near the coast. I could see anywhere from 10 to 15 feet. I'm in that Tampa Bay region. I would probably go. So, but yeah, so that's the storm surge. Let's get into the rainfall amounts, the flooding potentials. I know that's also something really big in this. So let's get to that right now. Alrighty, so this is the rainfall estimates. You can see a lot of the Tampa Bay region could see realistically anywhere from 4 to about, I'd say, isolated areas of 12 inches, and plus storm surge. I mean, obvious, but yeah, we just spoke about that already. Anywhere from 4 to 12 inches, all throughout, really the main impacts, and you can really see that in the Tampa Bay region. Honestly, heading inland too. Orlando could see anywhere from 8 to 12 inches in isolated areas, 6 inches in 6 to 4 inches, and most like kind of just low lying flat areas. But some isolated areas could see excess rain if it really really picks up. But most of the areas are not going to see catastrophic flooding. We're not going to see like 20 to 30 inches like we did, but there is still a moderate flash flooding potential through most parts of northern to central Florida. Yeah. Let's get into the strength now because I know that's something that people also question. The major impacts of this is obviously going to be the devastating storm surge. That I mean, some of the flooding amounts that we could, and also the winds. So let's get into the winds right now. All right. So before I get into the strength, I know I said I was going to get into that. That's going to be last because I do want to speak about the wind shear of how this could weaken out. This also does have to do with strength. So this big blotch of red right here, this is all wind shear, and that hurricane's gonna. It doesn't show past this line for some reason. I don't know why. That's how the HRRR just works. HRRR is meant more for the mainland United States, not much of the Gulf. But from what we can see from Gulf we're gonna use, the hurricane's way down here. I know you can't really see it here. It's down by the Yucatan. It's gonna swing up into where this shear is. You can see the shear is kind of right where the hurricane's going to make landfall in Tampa. And with the problem with the main problem with this is you can kind of see it's going to intensify as it kind of swings up and begins to get closer. You have these really high values of wind shear just kind of sitting there, and that's going to tear it apart essentially. We have this really low central pressure getting ready to barrel through, and it's moving not as fast as Helene did. It's moving at pretty, I'd say, average speed. So it's really going to get, stripped apart. It's really going to lose some momentum. It's, we can rule out it's not going to be a category 5 on landfall. I think we can safely say it's not going to be a cat 5 on landfall, which is very thankful. It shouldn't be a cat 5. The reason that it could be a category 4 is if we still have very warm waters here in throughout the Gulf. We still have like bath water, as some people call it. It's extremely warm waters for hurricanes to feed off of. So battling that shear with those warm waters, it, it's gonna create like a buffer. It's gonna obviously it's gonna weaken, but it also could strengthen a little bit before landfall. But it's gonna have to battle this really intense amount of shear that's stationed over Florida and the Gulf. But if it can slide up through it and like kind of quickly and not lose like too much momentum, we could easily see a Cat 4 out of this. But if it doesn't really get that kind of speed and it kind of really just lets that shear get like kind of that shear really bites into it, then we're gonna see this thing get torn apart, and we could see a possible non-major hurricane landfall, which would be the best bet. But I think the most likely scenario is going to be a Category 3, mid to high end Category 3 landfall come late Wednesday. So let's get into the intensity graph. I'm going to explain all that, and then that'll be it. So yeah, let's get into that. And then this is the intensity plot here. As you can see, this is within the next 24 hours. It is likely going to continue to be a Category 5 hurricane. And I'd say landfall is about 36 to 48 hours. If we look at that compared to where the models say, right now from the 18Z outlook, they're not saying this is going to happen. What the most likely scenario is going to be further down here. They're saying we could see a landfall of a mid to high end Category 4 hurricane, which seems unlikely. It very, very much seems unlikely. What the most likely scenario is be more of a kind of 3 to 4 thing, like kind of how Helene was. It ended up being a 4, actually a pretty strong Category 4. But we can see that right here. But a lot of models want to say that around landfall could be it could be a mid to high end Category 4. Then we have a few outliers. It's going to be a very strong Category 5 by land. That's just simply inaccurate. It's not going to happen. That shear is going to tear it apart. It's unless for some odd reason this becomes like an 800 millibar low pressure and it just like the shear doesn't do that much to it. It really kind of just keeps it back together. It stays tight, it's not going to happen. But let's say miraculously it does, then we could see a Category 5. But that's not going to happen. A lot of people, a lot of the media, like that doesn't know much. I'm not saying I know a lot about this. So I'm saying like a lot of people that aren't familiar with how category scale where say that and you're like, oh, it's gonna be a category 5 because the shear tends to eat the shear eats at it, throws dry air at it, and it just destroys the whole thing. The most likely scenario would be a category 3 down here upon land. That's the most likely scenario. However, this model run has a little bit stronger at a category 4, a mid to high in category, a mid category 4 hurricane. So, that's a lot of information. I'm just gonna end it off right here. It is a major category 5 hurricane. I'm likely gonna make another video tomorrow before landfall. And eventually, I do want to start live streaming these. So, like and subscribe. Share this to people that you know that are in the path. If we can, spread enough awareness to people that are in the path of of these types of storms that are life threatening, that we can save a lot of lives, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point of me. I started this is because I want to help people. I don't want to do this for money. I don't want to do this for fame. I just want to do it to help people. So if you wouldn't mind sharing this, liking it, subscribing, do just trying to help spread this worthy information out to the public, that would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, I will likely have another video up either tomorrow or Wednesday morning, kind of giving a final overview before landfall. So, if I make video, tomorrow or the day before that, I will see you guys definitely again very soon. Goodbye.